I'm happy to appear here at Nahos. Is my sound okay? The way we're going to do this is I'm going to make my presentation. Then I'm going to take questions and answers. The first questions and answers I take will have been submitted in advance by people around the world who were aware of this event but were unable to attend, whether they are here in New York or in Miami or in London or anywhere else. In addition to that, after we're done with that, I will take questions from the audience on any topic. As usual, I will ask you for no statements, no speeches, just questions, so we can get as many questions as we can answered that are pressing and important to you on any topic that we can. Then after the event, I'll be in the back if anyone needs a book. So, the topic we're discussing today is the Farhud, the roots of the Arab-Nazi alliance in the Holocaust. What is the Farhud? The Farhud is a Nazi Arab pogrom against the Jews of Baghdad on June 1st and June 2nd, 1941. This was an attempt to exterminate completely the Jews of Baghdad and of Iraq. It didn't quite go off the way they had planned it, and it was just a terrible pogrom. And I will explain exactly what happened. But the Farhud, the word the Farhud, is actually an iconic symbol for the Arab-Nazi alliance in the Holocaust. Because how is it that a group of people that were dwelling in a land for 2,600 years, the Jews of Mesopotamia, of Iraq, 1,000 years before Muhammad, came to be considered to be vermin, Untermenschen, which is German for subhuman, and were expelled from their own homes and subject to efforts to perpetrate a genocide. How did this occur? How is it that the Nazis, who were anti-Semitic, made an alliance with the Arabs, who were Semites? What's a Semite? A Semite is the children of the descendants of Noah. Noah had 3 sons. One of them was Shem. Those descendants, including Abraham, were Shemites or Semites. So the Arabs and the Jews are of different stems of the Abrahamic tree. How is it that the Nazis, who hated Arabs, who hated Semites, were able to make an alliance against the British and the Jews? What was the purpose? Well, the purpose was oil. What was the reason? The reason was oil. Now we'll get into all of that. I'd also like to say that the Farhud, this one pogrom, was just one pogrom in one city. And after it, well, the alliance went into the battlefield, from Paris to Palestine, from intelligence operations to parachute platoons to artillery brigades. This was not one Mufti of Jerusalem, but a mass movement of tens of thousands of Muslims. And these tens of thousands of Muslims were in a direct alliance of open genocide against the Jews. Now, I have to explain something. We're going to be talking about very sensitive stuff. My information is completely historical. It's the 20th century, not the 21st century. So nothing in what I say, as unhappy as it is to hear, should be used as a pretext to move against or have a negative reaction against any of our neighbors. But I do feel that unless a legacy of hate can be confronted, we will never have a future of peace. And we have to understand that the legacy of hate that created the Farhud, created the Holocaust, created the Middle East that grew out of the Holocaust, is in many ways with us today. Once again, it's important to keep this discussion completely historic. If anyone tries to draw me into a contemporary discussion, I'm not going to be drawn into it because I'm here only talking about the academic history. I should say that there were more than a dozen volunteers in 5 countries who helped to research this book. There is a website for the book called farhudbook.com. Farhud is F-A-R-H-U-D. I have my own website at edwinblack.com. And there are probably more than 1,000 footnotes as we reviewed thousands of archives. We reviewed the Yiddish press, the German press, the American press, the Arabic press, the Nazi press, the Nazi diplomatic papers, the Arab diplomatic papers, and we tried to do as thorough a job to vet the process. In fact, some of the people who helped me provide the book to you are in the audience today. With that, I'll start reading, and I'd like to get a copy of the book. Can we have a copy brought up? So when did the hatred for the Jews begin in the Muslim world? And why did it last as long as it lasted? Well, the history shows us, remember we're talking history here. The history shows us, just a moment. The history shows us that the beginning of the Arab hatred and the Muslim hatred for the Jews began in 627, when the Jews of Medina were exterminated by Muhammad. Medina, you've heard of Mecca and Medina. Medina was largely a Jewish city. In fact, the word Medinat comes from Hebrew. There was, in fact, no Arabic at the time of the Quran. It was written in a combination of Hebrew and Syriac. The original prayers bowing down were to Jerusalem. And after the Jews of Medina refused to convert, it turned to Mecca, and the Jews were exterminated one by having their heads severed by Muhammad and his colleagues. Then came the Islamic conquest of all of the Arabian Peninsula into the Middle East, into North Africa. This is the well-documented Muslim conquest. And that is how the Muslim world became established. Now, I'm going to remind people that this is a sensitive topic, and I want to talk history only, not contemporary affairs. My job is history. You will determine the present tense, not the and you will determine the future. Okay? So, the Jews of the Arabian Peninsula and the Middle East, when the Muslims took it over, became dhimmis. Not just the Jews, also the Christians. And this meant that they were a protected group within the Islamic world, but they had second-class citizenship or third-class citizenship. They weren't allowed to have complete religious freedom, and this is important because this issue comes right to the question of the Farhud, right to the question of the Arab-Nazi alliance, and right to the question of our status today, right in Jerusalem. Now, it would be completely incorrect to say that the Jews as dhimmis in the Muslim world were always kept as subhumans or as a discriminated class. Many Jews in many areas thrived greatly in the Muslim world. They were protected in the Muslim world. They became great merchants in the Muslim world. When the Muslims when the Catholic Church of Spain expelled the Jews in 1492, it was the Muslim world. It was the Sultan who took them in and who allowed them to thrive. And he took them in not to carry stones up to build a pyramid or a sphinx. He brought them in to thrive and to make the empires stronger.